If the defense forces withdraw from Donbas, it will create the conditions for a new war. After all, for the Russians, Donbas is a springboard for an offensive, and we will not leave from there. Volodymyr Zelenskyy stated this during a meeting with journalists. The head of state is confident that at the upcoming summit in Alaska, Trump and Putin will raise territorial issues and talk about supposed concessions that should be made by both sides, Ukraine and Russia. But, according to the president, this is a matter of the Constitution, and as the head of state, he is not prepared to discuss exchanging territories. Zelenskyy's plan is as follows. First and foremost, a ceasefire, and after that, discussing and resolving the issue of security guarantees from the United States, Russia, and Europe. And during the upcoming trilateral meetings, the discussion should not only be about peace in Ukraine, but also about concrete timelines for our membership in the European Union and NATO. Meanwhile, the Russians have started commenting on information about alleged agreements on territorial exchanges. In particular, a representative of the aggressor country's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, FDIV, has already assured that Russia will not agree to withdraw its troops from the Kherson and Zaporizhia regions of Ukraine in exchange for being given Donbas. And now, let's get back to the most anticipated event of the week, the meeting in Alaska. Coincidentally, a state of emergency has been declared there due to the threat of a catastrophic flood. High water is expected to hit the regional capital, Juneau, in the coming days. Some residents of the city are already preparing to evacuate, and it's all because of a possible glacial lake outburst in the Suicide Basin, which is part of the Mendenhall Glacier. Floods from this basin have become an annual problem since 2011. In recent years, they have swept away houses and flooded hundreds of homes. Hydrological monitoring confirms that the water volume has reached or exceeded the levels observed during previous record floods. The water release is expected at any moment, said the governor of Alaska. They called the upcoming Trump-Putin conversation at the White House a listening exercise, likely trying to lower expectations for it. After all, there had been talk that the president's negotiations might even achieve progress towards stopping the war in Ukraine. It is already known exactly where in Alaska Trump and Putin will meet. The meeting will take place at the Elmendorf-Richardson military base in Anchorage. Why was Alaska chosen for the meeting, and what else is known about the Trump-Putin negotiations? TSN correspondent Katarina Fedorchenko will tell you more in detail.
This is where the first meeting between Trump and Putin since 2021 will take place. The joint military base Elmendorf-Richardson in Anchorage is a restricted facility, and Alaska itself is an extremely convenient location for the Russian dictator. The United States is not a party to the Rome Statute. Therefore, on this territory, Putin is not at risk of being arrested under the International Criminal Court's warrant for the illegal deportation of Ukrainian children, which is still in effect. While the details of the meeting are still being finalized, the White House has stated that Trump and Putin will speak one-on-one. This upcoming meeting has already been described there as a listening exercise for the American president, thus lowering expectations for significant progress in ceasefire negotiations.
I think this is a listening exercise for the president. Only one party involved in this war will be present at the meeting. So the president needs to go and, once again, gain a clearer and better understanding of how we can hopefully bring this war to an end.
At the same time, John Bolton, former national security advisor to Trump during his first term, believes that Putin will be receptive to Trump's proposals at the meeting, since he hopes to make some cosmetic concessions and sway the U.S. president to his side. Bolton emphasizes that, unlike the Russian president, the American president takes politics personally.
Everything depends on his personal relationships with other heads of state, and Trump has publicly stated this. Of course, personal relationships matter in foreign policy, just like in everything else. But when you're one of the toughest leaders in the world, like Vladimir Putin, it's not about emotions, it's about cold calculation. Trump doesn't understand this.
According to John Bolton, the head of the White House mostly relies on his instincts as a businessman, whether he can make a deal. Trump himself has also talked about this.
At the conclusion of this important meeting, probably within the very first 2 minutes, I will know with absolute certainty whether a viable deal can be successfully made.
Trump did not invite either the president of Ukraine, whose country the negotiations directly concern, or the European leaders to participate in the meeting. However, he promises to later organize a meeting between Zelensky and Putin, either with his participation or without. And immediately after the negotiations on Friday, he will hold talks with the Europeans and Zelensky.
I will meet with President Putin, and we'll see what's on his mind. And if it's an honest deal, I will tell the leaders of the European Union and NATO, as well as President Zelensky, about it. I think, out of respect, I will call him first, and then them. And I can say, good luck, keep fighting. Or I can say that we can reach a deal.
Trump continues to insist that he envisions some kind of territorial swap where certain territories should be returned to Ukraine, but others will have to be sacrificed. There are two circumstances here. First, none of the sources among the negotiators give even a hint that Putin is planning to give up any occupied Ukrainian territories. On the contrary, he wants Ukraine to hand over the entire Donbas to him without a fight. Second, Zelensky refused to make any territorial concessions to the occupier, arguing not just based on his own emotions, but also on the Constitution, which does not allow for such trades. And this seriously annoys Trump.
I was a bit taken aback by what Zelensky said. Well, I need to get constitutional approval. So he has the approval to go to war, to kill everyone, but he needs permission to trade territories, because there will be some territorial exchanges. I know this from Russia and from talking to everyone. For the good of Ukraine, there are good things, not bad, but also some bad things for both sides.
Assessing the chances of how productive their meeting with Putin would be, Trump said, I think it's going to be good, but it could be bad. Katerina Fedorchenko, Olga Koshelenko. TSN 1+1 Marathon, the only news.
In Alaska, a protest is being organized ahead of the Trump-Putin meeting. The event is being organized by the non-governmental organization Stand Up Alaska. The protest is planned for the day before the U.S.-Russia leaders summit. As the organizers explained, they are protesting against the presence of an international war criminal in their state. We are here to send a clear message to both Donald Trump and Putin. Alaska firmly stands against authoritarianism. Their official statement says, meanwhile, due to the arrival of the Kremlin dictator, the U.S. Civil Aviation Administration is planning to close the airspace over Anchorage, the city where the meeting will take place. A notice about the movement of, quote, VIP persons has been published on the agency's website. The airspace will be closed within a radius of almost 50 kilometers and up to an altitude of 5,500 kilometers. The restrictions will be lifted on August 16. That's the day after the meeting between Putin and Trump. So why was Alaska chosen as the location for the Putin-Trump meeting? And why won't the number one criminal be arrested there? There are plenty of arguments to be made here. First of all, Alaska is located directly across from Russia, so Putin will only have to fly over a small stretch of the Bering Strait to land in the States. And the entire route for the dictator would lie exclusively through Russian territory and wouldn't cross the airspace of any countries unfriendly to the dictator. There's also a bit of symbolism in this meeting, since Americans bought Alaska from the Russian Tsar in 1867 for a laughably low price. In today's money, that would be about $111 million. The agreement was signed for 100 years. The term expired in 1967, when Russia no longer existed and there was the Soviet Union instead, so Alaska remained an American state. And, as Western media suggest, Putin won't hesitate to remind Trump about this territorial issue. The main topic of the meeting, however, will be discussing Russia's claims to Ukrainian lands. Trump will listen to Putin and figure out how to proceed. And the last, but very important issue for the Kremlin dictator personally, is security. In Alaska, he won't be arrested under the warrant issued by the International Criminal Court more than 2 years ago. After all, the United States does not recognize the ICC and is not a party to the Rome Statute.